We're now going to take a look at the lower respiratory system. The lower respiratory system is going to be the part of the respiratory system that lies below the larynx. First structure to identify here is the trachea. The majority of the structure of the trachea is made of C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage, and we see these individual C-shaped rings here. At the terminal portion of the trachea, we are going to see a triangular-shaped cartilaginous ring, and that triangular-shaped cartilaginous ring is known as the carina. So we see that carina right down here. That's the final cartilaginous ring before we get this branching or bifurcation of the trachea. We're next going to look at the structures of the right and the left lungs. So let's first identify the right lung. We see the right lung here, and we see the left lung here. The left lung is very unique in that it has this notch here to accommodate for the heart. The right lung has three lobes, a superior, an inferior, and a middle lobe. And to see those lobes well, I'm just going to tip the lung model here. We can see this large superior lobe here. We can see the middle lobe here, and we can see the inferior lobe here. Those lobes are separated by fissures. The horizontal fissure is going to separate the superior lobe and the middle lobe, and the oblique fissure here is going to separate the middle lobe from the inferior lobe. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the left lung. So again, the left lung is very easy to identify because of this indentation here. The left lung, we have a superior and an inferior lobe. So there's only two lobes to the left lung, while there's three lobes to the right lung. Here we see the superior lobe of the left lung, and here we see the inferior lobe of the left lung. Separating those two lobes is this oblique fissure here. Okay, so both lungs have an oblique fissure. So that's the left oblique fissure, and here we see the right oblique fissure, but it's only the right lung that has the horizontal fissure. The next structure to identify on the left lung is the cardiac notch, and that's what we're seeing partially here, is that cardiac notch. In order to be able to see the cardiac notch well, I'm going to kind of tip the model a bit, and we see that cardiac notch here on the internal component of the left lung, and this is the part of the left lung that the heart is directed toward and it rests up against, and that to accommodate for that the heart, the lung has the cardiac notch. Let's take a look at the branching of the trachea. So as the trachea descends, when it gets down and travels through the upper part of the chest, that is eventually going to branch, and we see this initial branch here. These are called a primary bronchus. So this would be the right primary bronchus, this would be the left primary bronchus. Each primary bronchus is going to branch into a number of secondary bronchi. So here, these would be secondary bronchi. Okay, so we have a secondary bronchus here, and we have two additional secondary bronchi. That is directed toward the right lung, and directed toward the left lung, we see here is a secondary bronchus, and here is a secondary bronchus. The number of secondary bronchi for each lung is determined by the number of lobes. So since there's three lobes to the right lung, there's going to be 1, 2, 3 secondary bronchi, and since there's two lobes to the left lung, there's going to be 1, 2 secondary bronchi. Pulmonary artery and pulmonary vein. So you should remember, since you covered your cardiovascular system and your heart information, that the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary veins are vessels that travel into and out of the heart. Here in the model, we can identify the red vessels as our pulmonary veins and the blue vessels as our pulmonary arteries. Remember, for the heart model, the color of the vessels indicates the oxygenation or lack of oxygenation of the blood. We know that pulmonary veins, blood traveling through them is coming from the lungs back to the heart, high in oxygen, so there are red vessels, and our pulmonary arteries are our blue vessels that are carrying deoxygenated blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen. The next structure to identify is the diaphragm, so this large, flat, dome-shaped skeletal muscle on top of which the lungs sit is our diaphragm.